Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Time in the Round, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of all things Yu Gi Oh! I'm Ruben.
I'm Joe, and we've got another 40 minutes coming up. We have a lot to talk about. Photon Hypernova is just around the corner. We had the sneak peek coming this weekend. We've had all the rarities revealed to us, which are a huge talking point at the moment in the community. But yeah, we'll get into it. So 40 minutes, episode 3 starts now.
And what a 40 minutes, because Photon Hypernova has fully been shown. And yeah, I always think that the first core set of the year, always ruffles feathers. Like, I feel like it always does.
Yeah, I mean this one's good though, right? I mean we've had a lot of stinkers over the last few years, and kind of the last set of the year has been pretty good. But this one, for the most part, is quite a good set. There's a lot of cards that people are looking out for. Obviously, Kash has now got the rest of what it needs to become what it is in the meta, but it hasn't come without its controversy. It's one of the highest rarity decks I've ever seen from a core set in like recent history. Um, we were talking before the podcast about what decks have been like this in the past, and we came up with Zodiac and Lightsworn. But even then, like these decks were when they came out were top tier decks where they were like absolutely smashed everything else that was out. Kashtira doesn't do that. I mean, it's a good deck, but I'm quite like shocked by how much this deck's going to cost everyone, and for its power level as such.
I mean, it's also so hard on pre-sales. Like,
Hmm.
to mention that, like, the rarity distribution has changed since Etco, so going from 8 to 10 secrets in a set, I think, 10 to 14 different ultra rares, so it like significantly changes how often you're going to see particular cards. I think the average is 2.3 secrets a case, and that's on the premise you don't see clumping.
Hmm.
Not to mention, obviously, costs of boosters have gone up. We've seen that's changed, at least for us in New Zealand, since Darkwing Blast. So I think that a lot of people are feeling this weight of pressure, of costs and singles and everything like that. And obviously, we see everything overseas, and the pre-sale prices for the overseas sites have definitely caused a bit of a ruckus in the New Zealand community. I think heavily deterring everyone off playing Kashtira.
Yeah, I mean, I had a core, but there was just no way I was going to spend that much more money to play the deck. Like I wasn't that invested in it, so I just flicked my core on, and that was it. And now I'm seeing a lot more of them kind of showing up now on the page. I think as well, like another factor would be the economical factor that New Zealand dollar is quite weak still. And you're seeing these pre-sale prices coming over from the US, and like it's just ridiculous, a lot of them. And you're gonna need how many secrets is it in this one, like for the deck?
It was eight for Kashtira minimum.
Yeah, and each one of those are high end cards. They're sought after. Everyone's going to be chasing them. It's going to be a bloodbath to start with. It will settle down eventually, like most things do. But it's going to be rough trying to build that Kashtira deck for the people that want it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it also reads to me that it's definitely the way that Konami are going to push the format going forward. I mean, I almost don't want to say the words, but I could be severely disillusioned, but I feel like elements, especially like Ishizu elements, are relatively budget friendly at this moment
Mm,
in time. Obviously, in comparison to Kashtira, but I think like goat format looks budget compared to Kashtira, and like max
yeah,
goat format. Like, I'm not really too sure of how a lot of these things go. It does feel unfortunate. Not to mention that obviously anyone that wants to play Kashtira will then also have to pick up 3 additional secret rares, most likely in the form of triple tactics thrust.
mm.
Um, a power spell, which generally the first set of the year is known to bring.
Yeah. I mean, in my time, I have seen some decks that have kind of pushed up into the thousands of dollars. This is a deck that, I mean, it's been. I can't even remember the last time it was seen a deck that even pushed towards that $700-800 mark. Like I think Eldritch when it came out was relatively expensive, but not that expensive. But yeah, the set at least brings some other cards for people that aren't interested in Kashtira. I think we'll be going over quite a few of them today. Like, there's a few that we want to discuss because there's a bit of debate around them. Like, are they good? Are they bad? Are they just okay? As you said, Triple Tactics Thrust. There's a huge card. I think that will be um, almost, it will warp the game a little bit. Not quite like as much as some cards, but it has the potential to. Like, the way it reads, it's quite scary. But then again, we always thought the crossout would do the same sort of thing, and look what happened there.
Yeah. I also think that I feel like the theme for Photon Hypernova, and the way that people are going to have to adjust, what's coming to mind is deck building. You have to
Mm.
adjust your deck building for this like upcoming format. Not only to mention, obviously, things like the Kashtira strategy, actively just ripping banishing cards face down from your extra deck, to something like Triple Tactics Thrust, which relies on you or your opponent simply activating a monster effect. Period. Not restricted to a time frame. Something like Tactics.
Hmm.
For it to be turned on. I think that deck building really, really is the phrase that's jumping out to me. But I guess that we can probably go over the 10 secret rares just as like a quick recap for those people who may not be too familiar. So obviously 10 secret rares. This has been the case since Eternity Code, I believe. And so we've got Gravekeeper's Inscription. This is an import from the Japanese, I believe, the Pharaonic Advent Pack, which is a very
Mm.
interesting thought process. We have Galaxy Photon Dragon. This is for the Photon Galaxy strategy. Oh, it's a rank 4. Actually, relatively good, but definitely, I feel like you can share the same sentiment. It's always overshadowed by what else is in these
Oh
sets.
yeah, it's the one you don't want to pull, right?
I think there's a bit more than one, but I feel like
Yeah.
that'll be on the lowest budget. You've got Gigantic Champion Sargus, which kind of combinates the support between Springans and Therion. We've got Kashtira Arise Heart, obviously the Kashtira boss monster. We have the Kashtira Theosis, which is their emergency teleport. We have Pressured Planet Rightsoth, which is the Kashtira field spell. We have the Triple Tactics Thrust, as we've spoken about, a power spell. To me, that was just such an obvious call. We have Waybridge, which is a power
Interesting card.
trap. Definitely something we would like to talk about. And I believe the final two we have are Gold Pride Leon. This is the sneak peek card, so we can kind of always assume that was going to be a secret rare. And then you've got Gold Pride. The Crowd Goes Wild, which is a great TV show, by the way.
Yeah.
Very nostalgic. 10 secrets. Joe, what are your first impressions on these 10?
My immediate thoughts are obviously rough on Kashtira players. The second thing though is they've put the power trap of the set Waybridge and the power spell Thrust, as well as the third card, the Gravekeeper's Inscription, as like the secret red chase card. So like, there's going to be quite a bit of value, I feel, in this set. Don't come running out to me after you pull two of the bad ones, but usually you'd get a good secret in every box. So value wise, the set's not going to be awful to open, and that's always a good thing. You definitely don't like it when you open a set and you end up with like an armed dragon and some other crap, and you're like, oh great, just burn my $100 whatever dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those secrets are pretty good. The Starlights, on the other hand, I feel they did well with some of them, but they've definitely missed a few. So we'll go over the Starlight rares of the set.
Yeah. So obviously five. Starlights. Let us know, Joe.
I can't even pronounce this one, but it's the
Oh.
the big dragon dude. There we go.
It's French. It's a Grand Guignol.
Oh, there we go. The dust dragon. Yep, and that's a huge card for branded, and like quite a nice Starlight rare, I have to admit. Like, I think that's a pretty solid choice. But thanks to one of the other Starlight rares, it's now making it a very, very expensive venture to try to buy max rarity branded. The next one is Kashtira Arise Heart. Another interesting one. I think that one's pretty good, to be honest, because it's like a meta relevant card that's going to be in the Kashtira deck, and it looks quite nice. Apart from the fact, as Troy pointed out, it looks a bit like Booj and Susan. The
Sorry,
next one,
just gonna stop there. Boojin Susan is ridiculously funny as a nickname. That is, to me, that's old Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I would have never in my life, I've never ever in my life heard it referred to as Boojin Susan. I've only
oh
ever
yeah,
referred to it as Susanoo or Susanoo or watch the Jeff Jones video.
Oh yeah, no, it's Boojin Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up was the Tri Brigade Arms. Oh, what's that say? Boost something or other.
Eucephalus the second.
There we
Yeah.
go. There's lots of tongue twisting words in this set. I have to admit. Yeah, that one's like, it's okay. Kind of cool that Tri Brigade players get another Starlight Rare, but overall the card won't see a lot of play until a bit later on. The next one, what was that? Oh, we had sorry,
Gold
Mirror Jade.
Pride. Oh yeah, Mirror Jade
Oh,
is
the
the
Gold Pride
import.
one, yeah.
Yeah. So gold. As of this moment in time, the our reference has not been updated. However, it is the fifth and final Starlight, the fourth in the set that was revealed as Gold Pride Captain Carry. This is the Gold Pride Trap Searcher. So relatively decent support card. Making waves as the first TCG exclusive main deck Starlight. It's not the first TCG exclusive Starlight. We were blessed with a Petitiel Couverture in Dimension Force. An interesting choice to make an archetypal TCG archetypal monster a Starlight.
I think this one hinges on how good Gold Pride will become in future sets. Like at the moment, it seems to be a deck that you play along with the Punk Engine. It's an archetype that's based off kind of losing life points, you gain effects. So yeah, it's interesting. I think eventually we'll see if this is a good Starlight or not. It might end up just being a flop of an archetype and the Starlight's wasted, but we'll wait and see. The last one is Mirror Jade, which I think is pretty cool. I quite like that as a Starlight. I don't like that because I was trying to get a nice looking branded deck, and now it's almost out of reach for me.
Yeah,
The
was that
fact that you
four Starlights have just been added to the list?
Yeah, four. I mean, you're going to need two of each, and then you've also got the Blazing Catasta from the last set, which you're going to probably eventually need two of those as well. So 6 Starlights in a deck is becoming quite ridiculous. I don't see myself getting there now. But for the people that can afford it, and the people that want to chase it, I commend them. It's going to be a nice looking deck. Mirror Jade is a boss monster, and it will look cool as a Starlight. I think it deserves that slot.
Also, Starlight Fusions. Big fan.
Ooh.
Big fan of Starlight Fusions. I feel like Starlight XEs are a waste of time. They're just so faint. Having a
Very
Zeus,
bland.
having Magnificas is just so. Honestly, this is something I noticed in Sydney. The American print Starlight XEs much better, much better. But it's American print, so you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas would like you. Can you just repeat that again? You think American print's better?
I just think that when it comes to unique cards, that American print may be the alternative if you'd like to enjoy the rarity higher.
If you
If
fancy a
those,
vomit, go get a secret rare and make that American print.
Also, realizing how unrelatable this conversation is to 90% of people complaining about how
Oh yeah,
Starlights look. Yeah.
oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
but going back all the way to a common card now. We've got a few. I think we've got 5 cards we want to talk about from the set. Some of them have gone a little bit under the radar. Some of them are ones that might have some meta relevance later on, and some we feel will push into the meta game straight away. The first
yeah.
one we're going to have a brief discussion about is a common, and I'll let you take this one away.
A comment, and this is interesting because I feel like so often when we look at core sets or just sets in general, a lot of the focus immediately jumps to the high rarity cards, and I think rightfully so. That's where the value is. But I think a lot of the time, some of the lower rarity cards can be sleeper hits or cards that eventually start seeing a lot of play, and obviously it's really cool if they see play because it means that they're super accessible and not an exorbitant price range. So the first one we're talking about here is Dynamondo. This is a link to Earth Machine, I believe, or Cybers. It is 2 materials or 2 monsters, a link to, so 2 monsters including a ritual monster, has 2 effects. If it is special summoned, you can target a card on the field and a ritual monster in your graveyard, and you can shuffle them into deck. And during your opponent's turn, you can quick effect tribute it, and then target a ritual monster in your graveyard. You can either add it to your hand or special summon it. You can only use each effect of Dynamondo once per turn. So obviously, big talk of the town right now, especially with rituals, is Mikanko. and the ability to utilize this monster as a strong link 2 that can then climb into something either cross sheep or sprite elf.
Yeah, I've seen this also used in a few gimmicky ways. It's kind of cool as well. You can use that Magician of Black Chaos, and like summon that back during your opponent's turn and tribute it off to like stop all monster effects. Just little, little things that it can do. Um, I know that Drytron players that we don't really exist anymore, but are looking forward to this card.
Who?
Um,
Drytron plays
yeah,
who? Yeah.
yeah, but I think this card gives another thing to rituals. Rituals are probably, I think, one of the least supported archetypes in recent times. They still kind of don't have the unfair button that all the other archetypes seem to have gained. So yeah, it's another step towards rituals pushing themselves into the meta. I'm probably looking forward to picking one of these up to play in Makanko. I think you are too. Like it just gives the players another tool, I suppose, in ritual based decks.
Yeah, don't everyone go throwing these at me at once. I understand how hard it'll be to pull. So
Oh yeah.
I'm thankful for everyone in advance if they'd like to pass me one of these. Our second card is an addition to a fan favorite archetype introduced in Darkwing Blast. And Joe, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, this one also I think might cause a little bit of controversy because everyone who got their Pistol cards in the last set was like, "Hey, this is cool. They're all matching. They're all super. Surely the next one's going to be super." And no, it wasn't. So Pistol Bulldrake, another bestial monster. It's a common, unexpected to be honest. I think that everyone had that like nailed down to be a super rare, myself included, and it isn't. It functions the same way as all your other bestial monsters. Instead, though, it has another function that the other ones sort of don't. So, if your opponent ritual, fusions, synchros, exes, or links, except during the damage step, you contribute one other light or dark monster and target one of those special summon monsters, banished it. And you can only use this effect once per turn. So it has the DD Crow effect as well as a kind of a removal effect as well. I don't think it's going to see as much play as the other ones, but as a one-of, I think it's a solid option.
Yeah, so glad they decided to omit pendulums from the bestial hate. It's just so nice to see that they're giving them something. It's been so long.
While giving them Kashchera, yuck.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, who needs zones? Number 3 is a TCG exclusive, so this will be very interesting to see how it appears. This is made to order Mermaid Outfit Outfitter as a normal spell, as a super rare, and it reads: you may target a card on your opponent's graveyard, banish it, then you can add one card from your deck to your hand with the same name as the banished card. You can only activate once per turn. So this is interesting.
Mm.
It's obviously a normal spell, so it's a slower DD Crow. Hilariously enough, it's a bestial if your opponent doesn't control a monster. Um, and it can function as a kind of replacement. Where I see this being used is maybe fringe application, I won't lie to you. I just feel like it may be a little
Mm.
slow. But in the instances where it may see usage, similar to something like DD Crows, it forces out graveyard-based interaction before it may want to be used. Thinking cards like the Ishizu Shufflers, thinking Sprite Elf Reborn targets. I
Mm.
think that that's a lot of where I might see this being functional. Alternatively, could also be used on just power spells that you play.
I think it's interesting. I think it falls under the same sort of umbrella that Crossout did in the TCG, where there's it might function pretty well in a mirror match, but overall, I think you're right. It's a bit slow. What it does is good, but because the bestials and everything are doing it so much faster and more effectively at the moment, it's okay. I feel like in the right format, if something came out where everyone's playing, a card that needs to be engraved and all the decks are kind of running it, then this might see some play. But apart from that, I feel like it's an okay card.
I think so. I think it sees it has a chance, just not right now in such a fast format.
Hmm. Another card I think a few trap deck players are looking forward to, another card that I feel same as the last card, might be better in a slower format, is Waybridge. It's a normal trap, a secret rare, and it says if your opponent controls two or more monsters than you do, they must Your opponent must send monsters they control to the graveyard until they only control one monster. So yeah, it's good, but also relatively situational. What are your thoughts?
This is interesting. It's functions like evenly matched, so it's forcing your opponent to take the action. So I think what is that theoretically out cards like towers, right? Even though you'd probably just
Mm.
keep the
Yeah,
towers. I guess like in the instance, no, not even like tokens because they can just keep it. They can just get rid of the. Oh, they can't send tokens to grave, so you'd have
yeah,
to keep the token. Um, yeah, this is it reads fascinating to me. To me, obviously, this jumps out straight away as something that belongs in like Labyrinth.
yeah,
Uh, a slow one monster deck that relies heavily on back row. Something like this might be is obviously a phenomenal equalizer, and I think
mm.
that I like these effects that make your opponent do something, but it's still your trap effect. So the instance of Labyrinth, you still maintain all the bonuses of forcing monsters to leave the field, but bypass any protection or targeting destruction or removal protection that your opponent's monsters may have.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think this card will only really see play in Labyrinth, maybe as like a two of or something. It's not something that like you're gonna see everywhere. It's a little bit too situational in my opinion because most people would just keep their most powerful monster. There's nothing at the moment. I mean, you could probably wipe a whole sprite board, but then what? You leave like a elf up, and they just use the elf effect, and you kind of just not really achieved all that much with the card. Um, but yeah, overall interesting card. I feel like it will be a trap that will eventually see play when combo heavy decks are in the format where people are like laying out 5 monsters that don't gain all the graveyard effects when they go to the grave, like Tear Element. But we'll see. We'll see on this card.
Yeah, I think we'll see. Next one we're going to talk about. This is the imports. This is Gravekeeper's
Mhm.
Inscription. So this is a card that was originally printed in Japan, and I believe the Pharaonic Advent pack. With support to things like Apophis and Spirit of the Pharaoh or something similar to like that. Again, very similar, like Earth Fairy support that kind of we saw with Ishizu. This is a normal spell. This is a secret rare, and it has. It reads at the start of main phase one, you can apply one of the following effects until the end of your opponent's turn. And there's 3 effects. Neither player may activate effects in grave, special summon from grave, or banish cards from grave. Extravagance based Necro Valley that can be conditional and applies in ways that you would like. Um, Speaking to OCG players in regards to this spell, the strongest application I've seen by far is in pendulums. Because they don't use the graveyard. Like they just functionally don't.
Mm.
So to me, it's probably that's where I see inscription being used. Uh, we've
Yeah,
seen it. Yeah, I'm so torn about this card.
I think it's kind of a bit of a split thing on the internet that I've been reading around. Some people in certain pages are talking about how broken and busted this is and how it's going to see so much play in, and other people are like, look, it's not seen any play in the OCG. I don't see why it's going to see play in the TCG. My opinion on it is it's kind of functions a bit like a bad dimensional shifter. Um, it's not very good going second. That's one thing I have to say about it. It's kind of doesn't really have that power going second. Yeah, sure, it might turn off some of the two element things in the grave, but at the same time, so does like Dweller. You know, yeah, it's an interesting card. I feel like it will see play in certain decks. Like you're right, like Pendulum, what might see a couple copies of this in Pendulum decks, but yeah, overall, yeah, we'll wait
It's
and see.
interesting, yeah, because like to me it reads like okay, perfect. There's a deck in the format that activates cards, effects, and grave. Definitely, you would play this. There's a deck in the format that loves to banish. Okay, great. Like we definitely play that. When you're in a format like right now, when the top deck could uses all 3 of these effects in
Mm,
different ways, it just reads quite literally it's just worse Necro Valley, a card that is a catch-all to those strategies. Necro Valley stops the
yeah,
banishing, stops moving cards from grave, which functionally turns off effects in grave and special summoning from grave. Like Dweller is, yes, it's one piece of it, but I think that Dweller's also only your opponent, so
Mm, mm.
you're still fine. Yeah, this to me, I feel like is gonna be a card that sees side deckable, like the side deck option when the
Yep.
main deck in the format only does one of these things.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is functionally like a bad Necro in my opinion. I think we just said that earlier in the week. Like Necro you're right, does all three of these things and is, searchable. But however, there is a card that we're going to talk about next, which does make this card searchable. So, in a way,
I mean, to be fair, this card does have Gravekeepers in its name,
oh
so
yeah, true, yeah.
the Gravekeepers players out there, enjoy your new power spell. Speaking
Yep.
to everybody else, here's your new power spell.
And it's a triple tactics thrust, number 69. Um,
You
secret rare.
really had to put the set code and number in there, didn't you? Really, you just really had to say that.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, number 69 in the set. It is a secret rare, and the word thrust is in its name. Oh, I couldn't not. And this card reads: if your opponent has activated a monster effect during this turn, you can set one normal spell or trap directly from your deck, except Triple Tactics Thrust. Or, if your opponent controls a monster, you can add it to your hand instead. The set card cannot be activated this turn, and you can only activate this effect once per turn. So,
This is a good
pretty
spell
good.
card.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, we just mentioned that the last card we talked about wasn't 100% searchable, and now every single normal spell and trap is searchable in this game, for a very little cost. Like everyone's
Quite
active.
literally, your
Yeah.
opponent playing the game.
hmm Yeah, and I mean everyone is obviously comparing this to Triple Tactics Talent. I feel that this card is at that same sort of level as Triple Tactics Talents. Um, applications go in first and go in second, obviously. You can set up very powerful traps in trap decks, go in first. You can also, if you get bestialed, go in first. You can then add any card you want to your hand to carry on your plays. You can add your starters. You can add like any pot to your hand. You can add desires. There's just so many options. And go in second, I feel like this is where this card could shine. You could break a whole entire board by making them play one effect. You activate this, you add Dark Roll to your hand, and it's all over for them. Or you can add an evenly matched to the hand. Like, there's just so many things this card can do. I feel like the people that think it's bad need to probably look at the card a bit more and start reading the game and being like, okay, this can literally do everything.
It does function so well, and I think that there's a lot of room for this card as well. More so, obviously, than Gravekeeper's Inscription. Sorry to power spells. Um, this card does a lot, and the amount of power spells. I'm gonna say less so traps. I can't really think of any on the top of my mind. That are
Mm.
limited. They're at one. Really, essentially functions as copies of those cards. So currently, top of my mind in terms of the format: terraforming, instant fusion,
Mm.
reinforcements of the army, uh, power spells that we have. Harpy's Feather Duster, that one. These are power
Even
spells
Feather
that we have.
Storm.
Feather Storm, exactly. Cards like being able to set up your interruption. I think that this card has a lot of accessibility, and I think has a lot of function, and will be used in ways that we currently aren't thinking of.
Mm.
And because I think the initial reaction is absolutely, oh my god, get X broken card, get X broken power spell, power trap. I could also just functionally search cards you're missing. Pieces of your deck that play normal spells, that you can just add this. I think in my mind, polymerization is a copy, branded fusion is a copy. There's so
Mm.
many different axes that this card can function on, more so than Triple Tactics Talent, which obviously has much more impactful effects, but a tighter activation condition. Notably, also this card reads the set card can't be activated. So if for you in any way have the ability to return that card to your hand, it works. You're allowed to activate
Mm.
it. So that's something to me that'll definitely be useful in the short term future. Something like Trap Tricks, Mantis has the ability to return set spell traps to hand, and then you can reset them. So that to me, this card reads functionally essentially like search any power spell trap that you can activate this turn.
Mm,
So I think Thrust is really powerful. I think Thrust has a lot of playability, and I think that this card is 90% going to be a sideboard staple for a long time.
mm. And even main decks, I think I'm gonna see you're gonna probably see this cropping up, sorry, in multiple decks in the next few like months and years. Um, I probably myself will play this at like two, as it feels like a good like two of, because obviously you don't want to draw more than one of it. Kind of like the talents sort of thing as well. But the fact you can then play triple tactics with this, like you could put two and two, like it just gives you a lot more power going second in it. I think personally, um, I've always seen talents as a card that really can push through boards, and this one here reads very similarly. It is a card that will give you access to cards that can just break any board in front of you.
Absolutely. I think that this is I to me I think this is a well designed spell. I think
Mm,
it's interactive in the way that promotes your playability. I think it's less of a quote unquote tilt than something like tactics. Whereas obviously, like, someone activates a triple tactics talent against you, and you just go, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, you've got it, and you've got something that you can do. You can take, you can draw two
mm,
cards, you can rip a card out of my hand. Whereas I think like this is, less play aroundable. Like this is why I was saying at the beginning, I feel like the theme is deck building because this now disincentivizes activating monster effects on your opponent's turn because the existence of this now could potentially benefit them in some way. And even like we said, going first, if your opponent activates Bestial, oh, I'll just set impermanence. I'll just
yeah.
set meta noise. I'll just set you know something another normal spell that I can functionally or another normal trap that I can use in a really strong capacity.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I thought about is like even in a deck like Sword Soul, um, going first, if they just activate like say like an Imperm Veiler, that sort of thing, you can set your blackout, and
Yeah,
then also
definitely
if they
Veiler, not Imperm, obviously. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, Vela. And if they bestial you and put a monster on the field, then you can just literally just add a desire. So you're effectively making this like a tactics as well, like a draw to kind of spell. It can be whatever you want, and I'm interested to see what people do with it. I feel like it's definitely going to see a lot of play. Um, it's definitely the one card in the set that I'm most looking forward to. That
Yeah.
we've gone over some of the other ones that I'm also going to be picking up. I'm excited for the set. I feel like a lot of people are. Uh, it's nice to have the first set of the year like not be bad. Like that's something that.
Have the first of the year not just be like, oh, let me get the power spell or bust. Like, I
Mm,
even feel like Battle of Chaos, like, what were you hunting in that? Chimera?
literally chimera and illusion maybe, and that's about it.
Yeah. And the Fluondaries Ultra? Like, that's, it's
Yeah.
felt so strange. Like, that's really the only function. And then obviously you go back a year more. Blazing Vortex, you quite literally only open that for Pot of Prosperity. Uh, one secret out of 10 was the reason to open that.
Mm.
So I think that, it's
Also, I guess
nice. Oh, yeah. Yeah, someone else you're
there is
looking
some
at?
some other things in the set. Like there's support for like heaps of other archetypes. We've got the Gishki stuff in here as well. We've got Abyss Actors in here. We've got the new Dogmatica ritual. There's something in there for like every like even like players of all these other archetypes where they're not just looking at it going, "Oh, right, cool, it's just new stuff." Like there's actually support for older things. Lots of generic good cards. This is a set where you're right, like you're not just hunting that one secret rare card and going, oh yeah, cool, I'll get a set of that and just throw the rest in the bin. Essentially, this is a set where players can confidently kind of get a few packs, open up, buy a box, and you're gonna walk away with at least some cards that you want, right?
You're also going to walk away with, places of Bestial Boldrake, which is a very strong common hand
Mm,
trap, I think that there's a lot in there. I think what this set is suffering from, and it's not because of the set, it's because of what hasn't been reprinted. I think a lot of
mm,
these strategies are choking for reprints. Notably, Gishki is like the biggest culprit. Having not seen a Gishki Abyss reprint in, I'm gonna hazard at about 7 years, is
Mm.
probably not the most functional. In fact, I'm gonna fact check that.
Yeah, and while you do that, I'll talk briefly about that there is, as I said, Dogmatica in here, and that's one thing that I'm also looking forward to. There's a really powerful ritual monster for Dogmatica in the set. The Gishki, I think we looked at, is mainly going to be played with Sprite, but
Hmm. You do need a card that was printed 12 years ago.
mm, I think we'll probably
So,
see it reprinted. But like
oh,
Konami does
absolutely.
take their time with it sometimes. Like you'll probably see halfway through the year, maybe there'll be a random common reprint of it, or in an OTS pack or something along those lines.
Probably perfect for OTS 20.
It
It
would, like, as a
just so many of
super.
these cards feel like they're so good for OTS 20. Like, the what is it? The Gishki stuff, obviously, that really could use as reprints. But even what else are other archetypes in here? Things like I'm sure there's some Galaxy reprints that are just super
There is, yeah.
inaccessible. There'll be some generators quite literally have not been reprinted. Um, I
Yeah.
think that I just think there's so much room for this OTS to hit so wide.
And there's also Big Welcome Labyrinth as well, a card we've sort of not talked about. An ultra rare that gives Labyrinth another strong trap to like push themselves forward again. There's just a lot of cards, as I said, in the set that for like a lot of people, and it's nice to have a set that kind of pleases so many people, I guess. Rather than just going, all right, cool, it's the people that are chasing the meta, the only people that want to buy the set. Like you can get this, pull a Kash secret, flick that off, and still like walk away with all the commons and ultras and supers that you want. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
get a pressured planet or a Theosis and trade it for literally every other card in the set that you're missing.
Yeah.
Um, that's definitely the money here. I guess kind of
What are
wrapping
you
up.
chasing?
Oh, it's Cash for me, absolutely. A filthy,
Yeah.
filthy Cash player. Um, I think that we're going to be in a format where that's promoted, pushed forward, especially
Mm.
seeing what did receive Starlight treatments and what I'm anticipating being pushed going forward. I do really believe that Cash is going to be functionally the deck moving forward. And apart from that, I really enjoy obviously all the branded support. I think that especially Gronkwignol and Rindbrum
Mm.
really, really add some strong, unique lines to the deck, make it a bit more attractive. I never played branded in its original format, so I'm not sick of activating branded fusion, which I feel like is definitely a plus too.
Mm.
I feel like a lot of people might have just like given themselves branded fatigue based on that format during our
Yeah,
nationals, which was Sword Soul, branded PK Adventure, all that jazz. Um, and yeah, I think functionally it's something like the Big Welcome Labyrinth as well. I'm really, really dying for a trap deck to be functional, but it's just such a hard ask in this format.
it is. Yeah, I think once Tier Element goes, that decks like Labyrinth, decks like Mekanko, even Pearly, maybe when it gets its new cards, like these are decks that are like kind of waiting in the wings for a ban list. And I feel once that ban list hits, possibly Kashtira, you might see Mekanko, Pearly, and like all these other decks at least creep up into like that tier 2, tier kind of 3 area and it will be, I feel, like a more diverse format. I think people have had their fun with Tier Element. A lot of like kind of the Yugi tubers are talking about how yes, it was a very skillful format, but they are very much looking forward to the end of the format. Um, I'm looking forward to the end. I'm looking forward to what's to come. I feel like there's so many New Zealand events coming up where we can experience this format. Um, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this weekend opening up packs of Photon Hypernova. I'm really hoping I pull my first Starlight in 16 years. Cross fingers. And yeah, I feel like that kind of sums up Photon Hypernova. Good set.
It's a good one. I think that this is a good set and really gives me a lot of potential for the format moving forward, which gives me hope in terms of opening product and seeing decent cards across the board. And hopefully promotes, like we said, the fun strategies that we're enjoying playing right now. Things like Brahmatsumi
Mm.
Konko, things like Pearly, things like Kashtira, and I mean even Springin's Sprite in a unique way. and as well as some of the more legacy archetypes, things like Abyss Actors and Generators, hopefully having a chance in this format to compete when it is so heavily dominated by a fusion archetype that loves to have
Yeah.
every broken tool under the sun, basically. But so be it. So be it, and be sure to get some Photon Hypernova, guys. This is
Yeah, head down to your local game store. I mean, there's going to be huge sneak peek events on around the place this weekend, and get involved because there's so many events coming up. And speaking of that, that is time in the round.
That's time in the round. So proceed to end of match. Like Joe said, be sure to support your local OTS stores. Head to Premier events. You've got a chance to obviously open packs for the first time in the country, as well as have a chance to win the Sneak Peek playmats and the Sneak Peek Ultra
Mm.
Gold Pride Leon promo card, as well as field centers for up to 16 people, basically.
Yeah.
And be sure to support those stores. They definitely could use your help in times like this, and sell your starlights to me. Thanks.
And one other thing I'll say is there's so many OTS championships coming up as well. So like keep an eye out on the page because there's a lot. I saw the list today, and there's one everywhere pretty much.
We got 14 across the country, I believe.
Yeah, and there's awesome mats to be won. Like they look so clean.
Yes,
So
gorgeous. Of that's something in the set we didn't talk about, the chaos monsters. Those are
oh yeah.
that's the function. Well, that's the artwork of the of the store championship mat. So
Mm.
be sure to support
And
those stores there.
also the huge regionals coming up and the NZ Open, which we will get to discuss in the next few weeks because we're expecting a big event there. It's capped at 128 players, so make sure you if you're booking accommodation and flights to book into that event and get your place because I feel like it will fill.
Oh, it's going
Yeah.
to be super good. And then we've got, regionals in Auckland that same weekend, as well as Dice Jar in Dunedin, and we have one later in April in Valkyrie Games. So be sure to, open your schedule up for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! Because this half of the year, or this quarter of the year even, really, really going off, which is amazing.
And speaking of schedules, we've actually got a plan in place for the next week. So we have the one and only Keza Doyle coming on next week to talk about his whole like Yu-Gi-Oh journey. I mean, the man's been around since the dawn of time. He is a dinosaur of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to interviewing him and just hearing his stories about where he started to where he is now.
Oh, I look forward to speaking to all things Kez, a pillar of the community, a touchstone for many, and a good time to a lot of people in Christchurch. So be sure
Check
to
out his new podcast too.
yeah, be sure to check out all his stuff. Obviously, he runs the Your Move TCG stuff in New Zealand, and enjoy his new podcast with James McIntyre. It's a hoot and a half. Really, I've only known North Island kids, so to hear a little skosh of South Island kids come up always makes me laugh a little. But thank you so much to everyone for listening to another episode of Time in the Round. If you like what you were listening to, you can follow us on your preferred podcasting app. And if you're listening along to us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. What card are you picking up from Photon Hypernova? And be sure to share it with a friend. I hope you enjoy the new logos and banner designed by my amazing friend Grace. Really here to show you guys what Time in the Round is all about. And, we look forward to speaking to you guys next week, discussing all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And thank you so much for listening. I'm Ruben.
I'm Jay.
And that's Time in the Round.